everyone, and welcome to this explainer. I am absolutely thrilled you're here today, because we're going to tackle something that literally holds almost every single one of us back at some point in our lives. Today, we're going to fundamentally rewire our relationship with being told no. We're unpacking a brilliantly concise and powerful philosophy from Dan Martell, and we're focusing on entirely dismantling the anxiety that surrounds rejection. By the time we wrap up here, the goal is for you to look at rejection through a completely transformed lens.
58. That is the exact number of seconds it takes for a massive, life-altering mindset shift to happen, at least according to the bold claim in our source material today. The original source packs an incredible amount of wisdom into literally less than a minute, promising to completely delete your fear of rejection. Okay, let's dive into this, because what we're going to do is intentionally slow that 58 seconds down. We're going to expand it, deconstruct it, and really map out the wisdom here so it truly sticks with you.
So I want to hook you immediately by challenging your core assumptions right out of the gate. What if rejection wasn't the opposite of success? I mean, from a very young age, we're conditioned to believe that success sits on one side of a spectrum and rejection is just sitting way over on the absolute opposite end. We tend to think that if we're hearing a no, we must be moving away from our goals. But the source material demands that we completely flip that script. What if that foundational belief is just entirely wrong?
To really grasp this, we've got to dismantle the illusion of failure. When we hear the word no, our brains almost instantly translate it into the word failure. But according to the insights we're analyzing today, rejection isn't a failure at all. Instead, it's actual, tangible proof that you had the courage to try. Think about it. If you aren't getting rejected, it probably means you aren't putting yourself out there. Therefore, viewing a rejection as a failure is really nothing more than a psychological illusion.
And that brings us to Dan Martell's incredibly bold initial directive. Delete. It's an active command, isn't it? It implies that the fear of rejection is almost like a corrupted file sitting on your mental hard drive, taking up precious space and bogging down your operating system. Well, through the framework we're exploring in this explainer today, we're going to actively hit the delete key on this mental block. We aren't just managing the fear here, the goal is to eradicate it entirely.
To pull that off, we have to contrast these two ideas clearly: rejection versus failure. The source makes a really profound distinction here. Rejection is not the opposite of success. Rather, it's more like the toll booth on the road to success. It is simply the price you pay to become a better version of yourself. You literally have to spend the currency of being told no in order to purchase the experience and the resilience required to ultimately succeed. It's an investment, guys, not a loss. Now, what's really interesting about this quote is the absolute inevitability of this whole process. You don't get chosen without first getting overlooked. Just let that powerful truth sink in for a second. It serves as essential proof of having the courage to try. I mean, think of anyone who has ever achieved anything monumental. Their story is always paved with moments of being ignored, bypassed, or dismissed. Being overlooked isn't a sign that you're unworthy of being chosen. It's a mandatory prerequisite.
All right, so let's transition the narrative from the high-level philosophy of rejection over to the actual mechanics of it. How does a rejection practically function out there in the real world? Well, the source material reveals that a rejection isn't a brick wall that stops your journey cold. It actually functions as a stepping stone. It's a navigational tool. When a door slams in your face, it literally forces you to look down the hallway for an open window.
Let's move to and see how this builds. We can actually break this redirection down into a very specific, highly actionable three-step progression derived directly from the source. Step 1, you get rejected. You take the hit. Step 2, you readjust. You analyze what just happened. You learn, you pivot, and you adapt your strategy. And then step 3, you rise. You come back stronger, smarter, and way better prepared. This progression clearly shows that rejection isn't an end state at all. It is merely step 1 in a growth cycle.
So, we really need to reframe the entire process here. What feels like a super painful rejection in the moment is, in reality, just redirection towards something significantly better. The source is very, very explicit about this. A no is essentially the universe or the market or just your circumstances actively steering you away from a path that wasn't meant for you and nudging you toward the path that is. When you can view it as a redirection, the sting of that no completely dissolves.
Furthermore, there's a mathematical certainty to persistence here. The source reminds us that every single no literally reduces the distance between you and ultimate success. Think about it. If it takes 10 rejections to find the one person who finally says yes, then every time you hear no, you should honestly celebrate because you just eliminated a wrong turn. You are mathematically closer to your goal. It completely transforms the process from a gauntlet of pain into a predictable, totally manageable numbers game.
Now, to fully embrace this numbers game, we need to shift our focus a bit to the underlying psychological barrier that prevents people from ever trying in the first place. Why do we hate rejection so much? Why do we avoid it at literally all costs? It really comes down to how our brains process anxiety. We need to decode what is actually happening in our minds when we face the mere possibility of someone turning us down.
The source defines the acronym exactly like this: false evidence appearing real. And this brilliantly illustrates why we absolutely must stop being afraid of things that haven't even happened yet. When you're scared to make a pitch, or ask for a promotion, or put your creative work out there, your brain is just projecting a worst-case scenario that does not exist. It's fabricating false evidence of ruin. Recognizing that your fear is quite literally a fiction created by your own mind is the ultimate key to dismantling it.
If the fear of rejection is based on false evidence, then overcoming it isn't really about being fearless. It's about having the courage to transform despite that anxiety. And this brings us to the emotional climax of the explainer, where we're looking at the ultimate ultimatum for personal growth derived from the text. It's essentially a choice between two very different types of discomfort.
The source poses a truly profound challenge. If rejection scares you, staying stuck should absolutely terrify you. We have to weigh the temporary, fleeting discomfort of trying and being told no against the devastating, terrifying reality of remaining completely stagnant. The pain of rejection, that lasts for a moment, but the pain of regret, the pain of never knowing what you could have achieved because you were just too scared to try, that lasts a lifetime.
We need to remind ourselves of this absolute truth highlighted in the source. Improvement inherently requires difficulty. Think about your own life for a second. You've never gotten better, stronger, or more capable when things were perfectly easy and comfortable, right? Growth happens under tension. The resistance of a no is the exact gravity you need to build the muscle required to carry a yes.
This entire philosophy is encapsulated perfectly right here. Comfort never changed anyone, but the courage to show up, that's where transformation starts. So the crucial point is that transformation requires showing up. Notice the heavy emphasis there. It doesn't say transformation starts when you succeed. It says it starts the very moment you have the courage to present yourself to the world, fully knowing you might get rejected. The act of showing up is the victory. The transformation is in the attempt itself. As we wrap up this explainer today, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought. Now that you know rejection is just redirection and fear is just false evidence, the ball is entirely in your court. Tomorrow morning, when you wake up and face your goals, will you choose the paralyzing safety of comfort, or will you choose the courage to transform?